This happened about a year ago. I was 30 and hadn't gone camping in a long time. My friends from college and I decided to take a weekend trip to Aspen National Park. We wanted to escape our busy lives and reconnect. So we set up our tents by this serene lake surrounded by tall pines. It felt peaceful mostly, and I've never stopped thinking about what happened next. The first night, it was mostly quiet. I felt a little relief from the work stress. As we sat around the campfire sharing old stories, I heard something strange. I turned toward the woods and thought I heard children laughing. It felt out of place. I shrugged it off and thought maybe it was just my imagination. We all shared ghost stories, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping over us. I remember laughing nervously, but I think deep down, I was uneasy. The next day, I wandered around the campsite and saw something unusual. Amidst the leaves and dirt, I spotted a small, old-fashioned toy soldier. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand, wondering how it got there. We didn't have kids, and it didn't belong to us. My heart raced a bit, but I didn't want to worry the others. We planned to have fun, right? That evening, after another day of exploring, we settled around the campfire again. I tried to forget about the toy soldier. But then I heard the laughter again, clearer this time, mixed with soft whispers that seemed to come from all directions. I glanced at my friends and they looked just as confused. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. Things got worse when we went to grab our supplies for dinner. Everything was different. Our food bags were opened, and the items were rearranged. That wasn't how we left them. I can't explain it, but the feeling in the air shifted. We decided to go to bed early, trying not to talk about it anymore, but sleep didn't come easy. I kept hearing noises outside our tents. It felt like eyes were watching us. I didn't know if I should check it out or just stay put, frozen in fear. I think I eventually dozed off, but I can't be sure. The next morning, we were all on edge. Everyone looked at each other like we were all thinking the same thing. I looked outside, expecting to see something strange, but the campsite looked normal, too normal. We decided to pack our things and leave. As we drove away, I felt a strange confusion. I glanced back at the woods one last time and I thought I saw a shadow moving just beyond the trees, watching our every move. My friends didn't notice anything. I didn't say anything. I felt like I was losing my mind. What was that laughter? What were those whispers? I can't shake it off. I'm not sure what we really encountered out there, but I think I wish I never went in the first place. For now, the question lingers. Who or what had been watching us in those deep woods? The days after that trip were bizarre. I couldn't shake the feeling of something watching us, even back in the city. I thought about the toy soldier constantly. I showed it to my friends later, but none of them seemed as unsettled as I was. They laughed it off, saying it was just an old toy someone lost long ago, but deep down, I felt it was more than that. A week later, I met up with Sarah, one of the friends from the trip, for coffee. I needed to talk about what happened, but as we sat in the cafe, I struggled to bring it up. She finally broke the silence. You know, I've been thinking about that weekend. It was strange, right? I nodded, feeling a rush of relief that someone else was feeling the same way. Did you hear the laughter? She looked concerned, almost uncomfortable. I thought it was just kids playing in the distance. You know how it goes. No, it felt different, I insisted. Like it was actually close to the campsite. She shifted in her seat. After we left, I had this dream. I don't remember all the details, but there were these children. In my dream, they were playing near a lake. They kept calling my name. That sent a chill down my spine. Me too. I thought I was going crazy. I saw them in my dream too. They were laughing. They felt familiar. Sarah glanced around the cafe, then leaned closer. It's probably nothing, but I did some digging. There have been reports about strange happenings in that area. Disappearances. Strange noises people hear in the woods. A knot tightened in my stomach. What do you mean? She pulled out her phone and showed me a website that listed strange occurrences in Aspen National Park. As I scrolled, I saw photographs, logs of chilling encounters, and strange artifacts people claimed to have found. One photo caught my eye. It was a toy soldier almost identical to the one I picked up. "That can't be a coincidence," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As we continued to talk, I could feel the tension building between us. "We have to go back," I blurted out. I couldn't help myself. I needed answers. Sarah hesitated, biting her lip. "I don't know. What if we find things we don't want to find?" My heart raced at the thought. "But we need to know. I have to know if it was all in our heads." We agreed to organize a smaller trip, just the two of us. I felt a mix of excitement and dread. The return felt necessary, but part of me wished we could just pretend it never happened. That night, just as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. I glanced down to see a message from Sarah. "I swear I heard children laughing outside my window. I thought of you." I froze. The laughter. It was back. That's when I felt the inexplicable urge to look outside. I drew back the curtains. What I saw made my heart drop. There, standing beneath the streetlight, were kids in old-fashioned clothes, their eyes fixated on me. But they weren't laughing. They just stood there, silent and still. I blinked, and they were gone. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The following day I went to work with a gnawing anxiety that I couldn't explain. I kept catching myself glancing out the window, half expecting to see those kids again. During lunch, Sarah texted me, "Can we meet? I think I found something else." Found. My stomach churned. I didn't know whether to feel dread or anticipation. We decided to meet at a quiet park nearby. The sun was shining, but I felt cold as I paced back and forth, waiting for her to arrive. When she finally showed up, her face was pale. I didn't just find reports. I found a local historian who knows about the area. He said there are stories about children who used to live near Aspen National Park. They went missing decades ago, during the summer. I frowned. "Were there any adults around? What happened to the families?" She shook her head. All he said was that some locals believe the spirits of those children still wander the woods looking for playmates. "Playmates?" I repeated incredulously. "That's horrifying. Why would they want friends?" "There's more," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He showed me some artifacts he collected from the park. Things people found. Buttons, old toys. But he said once you start unearthing those items, the woods, they change. "What do you mean they change?" I felt a chill run through me. "They become more alive." Sarah hesitated. "He warned me that it might bring out things that—" Just then, we heard it. Laughter. But it wasn't just a child's laugh. It was a chorus of giggles echoing around us, bubbling up from the trees nearby, almost taunting. We turned to each other, our faces pale. "That's the sound," I said, my heart racing. "The same sound we heard." "Maybe we should go then." But her voice was shaky, and I felt the urge to run too. "No, we have to find out where it's coming from." I took a breath, feeling a surge of adrenaline. If what we heard before was real, then we need to face it. We need to go back. As we stood frozen, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A dark shape darted between the trees. It was small, and it was fast. I instinctively took a step forward. "Did you see that?" Sarah grabbed my arm, her fingers squeezing tightly. "We're not alone." Suddenly, the laughter stopped. It was an eerie silence, like the world had hit pause. My pulse quickened. That's when I heard it again, the soft whisper of voices, this time clearer than before. "Come play with us." It was a child's voice. Then, out of the dark shadows, I spotted a flicker of light, a lantern swinging gently, almost beckoning us. "What are we doing?" Sarah's voice trembled as she faltered a step back, but I couldn't turn away. I felt compelled to move closer. "We need answers," I said, more to myself than to her. Before I could say anything else, I took off into the woods, my heart racing in my chest. Then everything went dark. I felt myself fall. The ground gave way beneath me, and I braced for impact, But instead of hitting anything solid, I landed softly, like falling into a pile of leaves. Confused and disoriented, I opened my eyes. For a moment, all I could see were trees towering above me, their branches intertwining like skeletal fingers reaching out toward the sky. I tried to stand, but my legs felt heavy, as if they were wrapped in lead. "Sarah?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. There was no response. I took a shaky step forward. The woods felt different, vibrant, almost too alive. The colors were richer, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. A low hum surrounded me, a sound that echoed between the trees. It was both soothing and unsettling. The laughter I had heard before seemed to linger in the air, teasing at the edges of my consciousness. Then I noticed it. The lantern wasn't just swinging. It floated in midair, glowing with a warm, inviting light. My heart pounded as I approached it, hesitant yet drawn in. As I got closer, it flickered, revealing silhouettes of small figures dancing in the shadows. "Is this real?" I whispered to myself. "Am I dreaming?" I looked around, desperate to spot Sarah, but I was alone. I scanned the trees, their trunks twisted and gnarled in unnatural ways. There was a hollow sound, like a voice whispering secrets just out of reach. "Come play with us," it beckoned again, a chorus of childlike giggles swirling around me. A chill ran through my spine. I turned back to the lantern, and that's when I saw them. Children, 3, maybe 4, peeking from behind the trees, their eyes glowing with a mischievous light. They wore old-fashioned clothing, tattered and faded, as if they had stepped out of another time. "Don't be scared," one of them called, a boy with wild curls and a cheeky smile. "We just want to play." "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Where's Sarah?" The children giggled, their laughter echoing like the faint tinkling of bells. "She's safe. Come join us. It'll be fun." They darted away, disappearing into the shadows, their laughter trailing behind them. I felt a pull, a strange craving for companionship. I hesitated. This wasn't right. I backed away, but it was as though the forest had wrapped itself around me, coaxing me to stay. "Wait," I shouted. "What happened to the others? The missing children?" "Play with us," they sang in unison, a haunting melody that echoed around me. Another figure stepped into view, different from the others. It was taller with a somber expression. "You must leave," it said, its voice low and urgent. "They can't be trusted. They will trap you here forever." Before I could react, the ground trembled beneath me again. I stumbled, trying to maintain my balance. Darkness began creeping in around the edges of my vision. Panic surged within me. I had to find Sarah. Then, just like before, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was back outside the woods, the sunlight filtering through the trees. I gasped for air, confusion and terror washing over me. Sarah wasn't beside me. I was alone. "Sarah!" I cried out, the word echoing against the silence. That's when I heard them again, faint yet clear. "Come play with us." I stumbled back, my heart racing. "Where are you, Sarah?" I called again, my voice shaking. The campsite was eerily quiet, and that low hum from before seemed to linger in the air, almost mocking me. I took a deep breath and scanned the area, my eyes darting from one shadowy tree to another. I forced myself to push back the fear and think logically. Sarah couldn't have wandered far. Maybe she was just exploring. I glanced at the lantern that had somehow transported me. Its glow felt different now, less inviting, more ominous. Instinctively, I grabbed my backpack and pulled out my phone, praying for a signal. There was none. Of course, there wouldn't be. This was supposed to be an escape from civilization. I cursed under my breath, frustration bubbling inside me. I took a few tentative steps toward the wood's edge, feeling a chill brush against my skin. It was hard to ignore the weight of the trees, towering and encroaching, suffocating the space around me. "Maybe she went to the creek," I muttered, even though I felt a growing hesitance about heading back into those woods. Just as I turned to head down the path, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. I froze. Was it the children again? I squinted into the shadows, but whatever had caught my attention had vanished. "Sarah?" I called again, trying to keep my voice steady. "If you're out there, please respond." Silence hung in the air. I wavered for a moment, debating whether to stay put or venture into the woods. But desperation won out, and I followed the path toward the creek. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the forest itself wanted to keep me from moving forward. When I reached the water, I saw something glinting beneath the surface. I leaned down to look closer. It was a small locket, ornate and old, the kind you might find in a dusty antique shop. My pulse quickened as I recognized it, a locket Sarah often wore, a gift from her grandmother. "Sarah!" I yelled, panic gripping my chest. "Where are you?" Suddenly the laughter returned, echoing from deep within the trees. But this time it was different, hollow and echoing, as if taunting me. I straightened, my blood running cold. The children from before were somehow involved. Had they taken her? "Come find us!" the laughter chimed, a sing-song melody that sent chills racing down my spine. The tones twisted, blending humor with an unmistakable sense of dread. I stepped back, heart pounding, desperate to make sense of what was happening. Should I run? Call for help? I felt cornered, a sense of urgency swelling up. I looked back at the creek. The locket shimmered with a horrifying allure, whispering for me to take it. And then I heard it, a soft rustling behind the trees. I turned, my breath hitching. Someone was there. Before I could scream, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the trees. My throat felt tight. It was a child, but unlike the others, dressed in clothes that seemed to shimmer in the fading light as if made from shadows themselves. "Come play with us," it called, slow and deliberate. I took a step back, heart racing. "No," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Where's Sarah?" The child grinned, a wide, unsettling smile. "She's here. Join us." Panic surged through me like fire. I turned to run, but the laughter surrounded me, echoing through the trees. I was not alone, and the woods had no intention of letting me go. I ran, heart pounding and breath coming in quick gasps. The laughter chased me, wrapping around the trees as if they were alive, eager to ensnare me. I stumbled over roots and rocks, the ground uneven beneath my feet. Each sprint felt like it was dragging me deeper into the forest's unease. As I burst through the thicket, I skidded to a halt. The path split into multiple directions, each one swallowed by darkness. The laughter faded, but was quickly replaced by a sinister whispering. I pressed my hands to my ears, shaking my head, as if that would drive the noise away. "Sarah!" I cried, desperate to pierce through the eerie quiet that had returned. A faint glimmer caught my eye. I turned, the locket still at the creek lingering in my mind. The glint seemed to pulse, calling to me from a narrow trail barely visible in the shadows. Cautiously, I stepped towards it, brushing aside branches. The whispering intensified, turning into an unsettling chorus. "Follow the light," a voice urged, soft and melodic. My heart raced again, but something inside me compelled me to keep moving. I rounded the corner and froze. Before me stood a stone altar, overgrown with moss and entwined with vines. Atop it lay a collection of strange objects, doll heads, broken toys, and what looked like more of those ornate lockets, each one glinting under the fading light. I felt bile rise in my throat. Something about that place felt wrong. "Sarah!" I yelled again, voice echoing off the stone. But my own words felt hollow. That's when I heard her voice, faint and teasing, mingling with the laughter orbs surrounding me. "Come play," she called, sweet and inviting, slicing through my despair like a knife. "I've found so many friends." My pulse quickened. "Where are you?" I shouted, glancing back at the altar, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "What do you mean, friends?" I fell back a step as the laughter erupted again, swelling and crashing in a way that sent shards of fear through me. Suddenly, I saw them. The children. They emerged from the shadows, their bodies leaning into the light of the altar, eyes wide with a mix of innocence and something darker. "Join us," the shimmering child cooed, tilting its head to one side. My skin crawled. There was no trace of the normality I'd once seen in children. They were unnatural and captivating, their pale skin seeming to absorb the fading light. "No! Where's Sarah?" I shouted, glancing desperately around, my breath quickening again. The walls of the forest felt like they were closing in on me, twisting my view into a swirl of shadows and fears. I couldn't afford to lose her. As I stepped back, a sudden rush of wind hurled through the trees, leaving me momentarily disoriented. But then, I caught sight of a movement just behind the altar, a glimpse of golden hair. "Sarah!" I screamed, lunging forward. That's when everything went dark. The world around me vanished, consumed by a shadow that felt alive. I opened my mouth in a silent scream, and then the whispers rose again, drowning out my thoughts. "Remember who we are." They hummed, a chorus that seemed to sing from every direction. I tried to resist, but it felt like I was falling, the ground slipping away beneath me. I had to wake up. I had to fight back. But as the darkness closed in, I realized I was no longer afraid of what might find me in the woods. I was afraid of what I might become. And then, in the insatiable black, I heard a familiar voice. "Help me." It was Sarah, calling from somewhere deep within the shadows. I felt weightless, suspended in that darkness until the sound of Sarah's voice pulled me back. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a cry for help. I struggled against the shadows, reaching out for her, but the darkness just seemed to twist away, like it had a life of its own. "Sarah!" I called again, my voice faltering, swallowed by the void. My heart raced, the panic building in my chest. If I didn't find her soon, then a flicker of light broke through. I squinted, focusing on the warmth that cut through that consuming blackness. As I moved toward it, the shadows receded, revealing the stone altar once more, the grotesque toys gleaming under the weak glow. But there was something else now. Shapes were stirring. "Help me." Sarah's voice echoed again, filled with desperation. The light grew brighter, illuminating what I had missed before. Figures standing around the altar, their eyes fixed on me. They were the children. But they seemed different, no longer just eerie shapes. Their faces twisted with anguish and fear, their forms flickering like distant flames. One child, a girl with dark hair and hollow cheeks, leaned forward, tears streaming down her face. "We can't leave," she sobbed, her voice cracked and raw. "They won't let us." "Who won't let you?" I asked, feeling the ground tremble beneath my feet. "Where's Sarah?" The boy beside her shook his head, his eyes wide with understanding. "She's with them. We have to warn you. They'll take you too." "Who will?" I shouted, but realization was dawning on me. I glanced back to the altar, and the dolls scattered beneath it, their glassy eyes watching. I wanted to scream, but a cold dread gripped me. I couldn't leave Sarah behind. Suddenly, the ground erupted with laughter again, harsh and cruel. The shadows spun around me, almost tangible, like fingers closing in. I stumbled back, feeling a surge of power rising against me, but I couldn't let it win. Not without my sister. "Stay away!" I yelled. "Let her go!" At that moment, the other children surged forward, their faces panicked. "You can't fight them! You have to go!" They shrieked, their forms distorting into blurry outlines. As if in response, a shadow lunged from behind the altar, forming into a figure cloaked in darkness. I could barely make out a shape. Not quite human, not entirely monstrous. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, locking onto mine with a hunger that sent a shiver down my spine. "Leave now and let her stay," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that filled my head. "You are a part of the game now." I backed away, heart hammering wildly. I glanced at the children, desperate. The light surrounding me shrank, making it hard to breathe. I could feel the weight of whispers surrounding me again, each one dampening my will. The shadows were so hungry. But then I felt something cold pressed against my palm, the locket from the creek, heavy with memories. I held it tightly, igniting a surge of courage. "Get back!" I shouted, raising the locket. Instantly, the shadows recoiled, hissing in anger. The light flickered, and for a moment, I could see Sarah's silhouette, the glint of golden hair shining through the darkness. "Come to me," I called, my voice steadier. "Please, Sarah, I'm here." The figure behind the altar hesitated, the shadows thickening around it. That's when I realized I had only moments left to act. I took a deep breath and charged forward, ready to face whatever lay before me. The darkness roared, but in that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. I had to reach her before it was too late. Then everything collapsed. The laughter became a scream, and I was pulled into the shadows, drawing closer to what I feared most. I found myself tumbling through the darkness, the weight of the shadows pressing against my skin as I spiraled deeper into the unknown. My breath came in sharp gasps, and a sense of dread enveloped me like a thick fog. I couldn't tell if I was upside down or right side up, but I could still hear Sarah's voice, faint and filled with fear. "Help me!" she cried out, the sound just a little louder now. I had to hold on to that voice, something to guide me. I focused on it, letting it anchor me against the whirling chaos. Suddenly, without warning, I landed hard on the ground, jolted back into reality. The world around me shifted, and I blinked, struggling to adjust to the dim light. I was no longer by the altar. I was in a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to lean in, their branches intertwined like reaching fingers. The air felt colder here, and an uneasy silence settled over me, as if the woods were holding their breath. I stood up slowly, looking around. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings, my instincts screaming that I wasn't alone. "Sarah!" I shouted again, but this time my voice echoed, swallowed by the trees. There was no answer. I felt a rumble beneath my feet, almost like the earth was trembling. Then I saw it, something glimmering in the leaf-littered ground nearby. Cautiously, I stepped closer. It was a small, twisted doll, its clothes tattered and face cracked. I shuddered at its lifeless gaze but forced myself to pick it up. The moment my fingers brushed against the surface, the clearing came alive with sound. The laughter returned, louder and more menacing than before, echoing through the trees. "Join us," the laughter taunted, swirling around me. Desperate, I looked for a way out, but all I could see were shadows closing in. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe as the twisted dolls began to appear, popping up between the trees, their eyes glancing hungrily at me. "Leave her alone!" I shouted, clutching the doll tightly, trying to reclaim some power. It felt like a weight in my hand, anchoring me to this realm as reality started to waver. The laughter intensified, mocking my resolve, and I could feel the dark figures emerging from the trees, their forms flickering like a broken film. "Come and play," they whispered in unison, their voices melded into one terrible chorus. A knot tightened in my stomach. I was trapped in their game, and I could feel their eyes on me, pulling me in. Then, a flash of light broke through the trees, a blinding beam that illuminated the clearing. It cut through the darkness like a beacon, making the figures wail and retreat. I squinted against the brightness, and there, on the other side of the clearing, stood Sarah. She was glowing in that light, her expression a mix of fear and relief. "Please, we have to go," she cried, panic driving her voice, but the shadows were starting to shift again, creeping back from the light. "Sarah!" I yelled, sensing my chance slipping away. I ran toward her, but the shadows leaped forward, blocking my path. I skidded to a halt, my heart racing. That's when I noticed the ground shaking even more violently. It wasn't just the fear. It was something else. Something was rising beneath us, a darkness clawing its way up. I had to act. "Hold on," I shouted, feeling the locket warm in my pocket, a small comfort amid the chaos. I reached for it, ready to unleash whatever power it held. But before I could react, the ground split open, and dark tendrils shot out, reaching for us. "Run!" I screamed as the shadows erupted around us. Everything felt like it was coming undone. Winter had turned to war as I grabbed Sarah's hand, and we started to sprint, deeper into the woods, desperate to escape the thing that wanted us both. We ran as fast as we could, the forest blurring around us. I could feel Sarah's hand, warm and real, but the ground trembled beneath our feet, threatening to swallow us whole. The laughter faded, but the echoes reverberated in my mind, making it hard to concentrate. "Where do we go?" Sarah shouted, her breath coming in quick bursts. I could see the fear in her eyes. It mirrored my own. "Anywhere but here," I yelled back. I scanned the trees, looking for a path, a sign, anything that could lead us out. Then I spotted something, a small opening between two thick trees. It was barely visible, hidden by draping vines. "Over there," I pointed, and without hesitation we darted toward it. As we squeezed through, I felt a sharp tug behind me, like something had tried to grab me but just missed. Once through, we stumbled into a smaller clearing, but this one felt different. It was eerily quiet. The trees were arranged in a perfect circle, and at the center lay a massive stone, etched with strange symbols that looked like they were pulsating. I approached cautiously, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread. "What is this?" Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know. My heart raced as I ran my fingers over the carvings. They felt warm, alive. "Maybe it's a protective symbol or something," I suggested, but even I didn't believe it. Suddenly the symbols started glowing, lighting up the clearing with an otherworldly glow. "Look," Sarah gasped. I turned to see the trees around us suddenly shift, their bark twisting into faces, eyes wide with horror and mouths open in silent screams. I staggered back, bumping into the stone. "Stay close," I said, grabbing her hand again. We turned, ready to flee, but the symbols were pulsing faster now, almost calling us back. I could feel a strong pull, as if the stone was drawing us in. "Don't look at it," I shouted, but the power was overwhelming. Just as I thought we might be drawn into the stone itself, the laughter returned, louder and angrier than before. The shadows from the forest closed in, circling us, swirling like a storm. "Run!" I cried, yanking on Sarah's arm. We sprinted back to where we came, but the trees seemed to shift around us, blocking the way. We were trapped, and time felt like it was slipping away. The air thickened, making each breath harder to take. That's when I noticed something flashing in the direction of the stone, a glint of silver. I squinted through the chaos and realized it was my locket, somehow shed during our mad dash. It lay on the ground, catching the faint light. "Wait!" I shouted, but Sarah was already moving. "We can't leave it!" I ran back, my feet pounding against the earth. As I reached for it, a shadow lunged, wrapping around my ankle. I looked back and felt a wave of panic wash over me. "Help!" I screamed, but the darkness pulled me down. I grasped the locket tightly, its heat surging through me, and in that moment, everything froze. The shadows paused, the laughter faded to silence. And then, a new sound broke through, the crack of branches snapping, something crashing through the trees. I looked up, breathless, as a figure emerged from the darkness. I didn't know if it was friend or foe, but I could feel the weight of the woods lifting, even as everything else stirred around us. "Get away from her," the figure shouted, and I fought against the grip of the shadows. But then something shifted deep within. I felt a connection, a strange sense of alignment with the unknown. I just hoped it was enough to save us both. I couldn't tell if the figure was friend or foe until I saw their face. It was a girl, not much older than me, but her eyes, they held a knowing light, a wisdom that felt out of place in this twisted reality. "I've been trying to get you out," she shouted amidst the clamor of shadows and laughter. The entity around my ankle hissed in protest as I gripped the locket tighter, feeling its warmth pulse in sync with the rising panic in my chest. "Who are you?" I yelled back, but the shadows squirmed, responding to fear like a hungry beast. "Trust me!" she yelled, and I felt the shadows around my leg loosen, sensing a shift in the air as the girl advanced toward me. I reached for her, shouting for Sarah, but the shadows surged again, causing the ground to tremble. "Listen," she cried. "You have to focus. The power of that locket, it can break their hold." She pointed toward the glimmering silver in my hand. "You need to use it. It will help you unclasp their grip." With every instinct screaming to pull free and run away, I fought against the instinct to flee. Instead, I held the locket out, the flickering light casting an ethereal glow. "Get back," I shouted, my voice trembling as I invoked whatever power lay dormant within the locket. The shadows writhed, their faces twisting in fury, as I took a step forward, drawing strength from the warmth. "You can't have us," I proclaimed. In that instant, the laughter exploded into a deafening roar, echoing through the clearing, but the locket surged brighter, igniting a pulse that swirled around me. "I'll find you," the girl shouted to the shadows, but I felt the pull of uncertainty. Was she truly here to help? "Sarah," I cried, feeling the urgency of time slipping away. "We have to break out of this." Desperation clawed at my throat. The world felt distorted, like a dream teetering on the edge of a nightmare. In the distance, I heard a weak response. "I'm here." "Focus on my voice," shouted the girl, inching closer despite the oppressive presence of the shadows. "You have to remember what you came here for." A surge of memories flooded me. The laughter, the haunting calls, the warmth of connection I once felt with Sarah, and the unexplainable fear that had arisen in those woods. I thought of our bond, of the past we shared, something larger than the shadows enclosing us. The darkness shrieked, writhing as if it had been grazed by a flame. I gripped the locket tighter, heart pounding louder than the shadows, letting the warmth swell within me until its light blazed into an intense fire. "You will not take us," I shouted, thrusting the locket out before me, feeling its energy pulse like a heartbeat. My heartbeat. Suddenly, light surged from the locket, piercing through the shadows and illuminating everything. The laughter faltered, the faces twisted and melted, replaced by fleeting glimpses of the children, regret and fear flickering within their eyes. "Make it stop," I heard Sarah cry, echoing through the air, just as the shadows hissed in fury, recoiling from the light. I squeezed my eyes shut, embracing the warmth, knowing I had to keep holding on. We could escape together. With a surge of courage, I shouted one last time, "We're leaving!" The shadows screamed, retreating as if burned by the light, their whispers fading to silence. And just like that, the world began to shift again. Everything slipped, and I felt myself soaring, light cradling me like air. As the brightness enveloped us, I could almost feel Sarah's hand slip through mine, fragile, real, before everything faded once more. I awoke gasping, sprawled on the forest floor, a dappled sun flickering above me. My surroundings felt strange, yet peaceful. The shadows were gone. I sat up quickly, searching for Sarah. "Sarah!" My voice echoed, but the only reply was the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. I blinked against the sun, feeling bewildered but free. It felt surreal, like bursting forth from a fog. Then I caught sight of the locket clutched tightly in my hand. I blinked down at it. The chill and power it carried still hummed like a memory. I took a deep breath, struggling to calm the wild uncertainty coiling in my stomach. That's when I spotted something, a disturbance in the underbrush. Surely it was a sign. I rose to my feet, my heart racing, and peered into the shadows of the trees where tender branches swayed. "Sarah!" I called again, desperation bubbling in my chest. Nothing. The woods held their secrets close, tangible but just out of reach. I faltered, a wave of apprehension rolling through me. Had we truly escaped? I felt an urge to turn back, to search deeper. But then I hesitated. The fading echoes of laughter brushed against the edge of my memory. What if it wasn't over? "I need to go home," I whispered to myself, stepping back slowly. Yet as I turned, a flicker of movement caught my eye. There, just beyond the trees, a whisper of familiar golden hair. I froze. Sarah? But the figure vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the woods that had once felt so inviting. The laughter echoed faintly again, woven into the breeze, questioning, taunting. With my heart pounding, I made my way to the path leading back to the car park, glancing back one last time at the woods. The weight of everything pressed heavily in my chest as I walked away. Had I really escaped? Were we truly free? As I drove away, the setting sun hovered over the horizon, casting long shadows across the road. I glanced in the rearview mirror but found only the trees, standing sentinel to the secrets that still lingered within. I didn't turn back. I wasn't ready to know the truth just yet. But even then, as dusk settled in and I drove deeper into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that some mysteries remain unsolved. And the woods were waiting, ever patient.